Hello, welcome to What Culture Football. My name is Simon Miller, and if you don't know, I'm an Arsenal fan. And being an Arsenal fan, there's one thing that I'm used to, and that's sadness, disappointment, and just sheer out craziness. Now, I'm happy to admit I'm one of those guys that would have been happy to see Arsene Wenger do another year just because I like to be different and I like to be a bit annoying. But you've got to admit, throughout his tenure, he did make some pretty damn good signings, but he also made some really weird ones. The reasons for doing this we may never know, but what we can do is run down the 10 weirdest ones and tell you about them right now. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm Simon from What Culture, and this is 10 of the most bizarre signings Arsenal ever made. Number 10, TOMAS DANILEVIČIUS. Now, I probably pronounced that wrong, but I was also pronouncing it wrong when indeed the Lithuanian international signed for the Gunners back in the 2000-2001 season. All you need to know though is that throughout his entire time with Arsenal, he only made 3 appearances. Now, before the 2000-2001 season, he did impress Arsene Wenger. He even scored a goal against Barcelona, but when it all kicked off, everything went bad. In all those appearances I just mentioned, he wasn't able to find the net once, and the bottom fell out to such a degree, eventually he was just loaned to Dunfermline. After a brief spell in Scotland, the 6'2" striker eventually went to play in the Belgian league and in Serie A, but no disrespect to him, he didn't really do much there either. He did, however, smash it for Lithuania at international level, but it's the modern game, and as we know in the modern game, nobody cares about that. Number 9, Richard Wright. Billed to be the successor for David Seaman, and for the record, I love David Seaman. He's one of my favourite players ever. As it turned out, Richard Wright instead was a massive flop. Costing around £6 million at the time, in his first season for Arsenal, he only made 12 appearances. Once again, kind of sums it up. The low point of his career undoubtedly came when Arsenal did indeed take on Charlton and lost 4-2, and one of those goals he let in, he literally punched straight into his own net. Unsurprisingly, after this, Arsene Wenger fell out of favour with him. He was eventually sold to Everton in the summer of 2002, and the real question is, why on earth did Arsenal spend £6 million on Richard Wright? And I get it, in 2018, £6 million doesn't sound like that much money, but back then, let me tell you, it was a damn lot of money, and no offence to Richard Wright, he probably weren't worth it. Number 8, Igor Stepanovs. The Latvian may have spent 4 years at Arsenal, but he only managed to rack up 31 appearances. Joining the Gunners in September 2000, the point was simple. Tony Adams, the club captain, was injured, and Arsene Wenger desperately needed someone to fill in that role until he could come back. Igor was your man. Signing for just over £1 million, he actually had a decent start, but unfortunately was part of that team that got walloped 6-1 by Manchester United, and after that, everyone knew the same thing. You can't trust this guy, so let's not trust this guy. During the 2001-2002 double winning season, he only appeared 6 times for Arsenal, and over the next 2 years, that continued to diminish, and then it diminished some more until eventually he was sold to Swiss side Grasshoppers. That was in 2004, and we never talked about him again. Number 7, Mikael Silvestre. Another centre-back and another move that must be among one of the weirdest in the club's history. The international fullback joined the Gunners in the summer of 2008, and what was even stranger here was that before this, he had spent almost 10 years with Manchester United. So you've got to ask yourself, why would Manchester United be so eager to let him go if he still had the goods? Because of that, this was a shock move all around, especially to the fans. They were like, what is going on? Mikael made around about 26 appearances for Arsenal, but he never, not once, showed any of the talent he had in the 350 appearances he made for the Red Devils. His signing is also bonkers because of everything around it when you take context in. He was 31 years old at the time, and Arsenal needed something to shore up their defence. You probably shouldn't have gone for a player like this. Number 6, INAMOTO. A poor signing or a brilliant marketing ploy? That is always the question that gets asked when we do indeed talk about Arsenal's signing of INAMOTO. The Japan international was signed by the Gunners in 2001 for around about £4 million, and yet in that season, he never made one Premier League start, instead just popping up in cup campaigns. And then, 12 months after joining, he was released. What a waste of everybody's time. Naturally, such a short spell made everybody go, well, he was only signed for marketing reasons, and let's be fair, it did help Arsenal's influence in Asia, especially because we were about to have the Japanese World Cup. As you imagine, Wenger did deny all of this and said that's nonsense, and the player was just not ready for the Premier League. It's a fair point. Either way, what a weird signing. Number 5, Francis Jeffers. He was supposed to be Arsenal's new fox in the box, much like Ian Wright, but instead Francis Jeffers was more like a headless chicken, and this got even worse because he cost £10 million, which then was one of the most expensive signings Arsenal had ever done. Now, Jeffers' move to Arsenal did come off the back of how much potential he'd shown for Everton. However, in the season before he signed, he even scored 7 goals, so Wenger was taking a bit of a risk. Alas, it was no better at Arsenal, where he only scored 8 goals in 39 appearances, and after 2 years at Highbury, guess what happened? That's right, he got loaned back to Everton, the place where he'd come from. Number 4, SÉBASTIEN SQUILLACI, or Seb as I call him. Seb's a lot easier, and it's still a name that if you mutter today, Arsenal fans in unison will start shuddering. The centre-back has gone down as one of the club's worst signings ever, that means ever in history, period, of all time, and even then, a lot of Gunners fans were like, huh? Seb's arrival in North London was strange straight away because it broke Wenger's policy of hiring youth. He was 30 years old. However, he did get signed as a French international when he came over from Sevilla. Costing around £4 million, at no point did he ever show that talent that had got him into the French international team. But again, ever since he signed for Arsenal, he never got a call-up, and that probably suggests his best days were behind him. After making 33 appearances in his first year for the Gunners, over the next 2, he made 7. Number 3, Park Chu-Young. Not only was Arsenal's decision to buy Park Chu-Young strange, but everything that went around it was strange too, because he was sat in a hotel room about to sign for Lille, and then all of a sudden went, I'm going to go sign for Arsenal instead. And he did. Park's time at Arsenal saw him only make 7 appearances, and he scored 2 goals within that before he was loaned out to other clubs, be that Watford or Celta Vigo, and hilariously, he made more appearances for them than he ever did for the Gunners. And Wenger signing off Park is battling because he barely got any playing time, but we gave him the number 9 shirt, which would suggest we thought he was going to play all the time. But he didn't. None of this makes sense. Like INAMOTO, there was a lot of rumblings that maybe Arsenal only did this for marketing reasons. However, it's more likely Wenger was looking for anybody after once again United had thumped Arsenal 8-2 at Old Trafford. And I remember that game. I was on a train going to London, was listening to it. Sad days. Number 2, AMAURY Bischoff. When Arsene Wenger announced the signing of Bischoff, even he came out to tell us he was making a bit of a gamble. Not only had the player suffered with injuries up to this point, but he signed with a damn groin problem. Signing on as a free in the summer of 2008, unsurprisingly, Bischoff failed to make any impact, and he had 1 appearance for the Gunners that season when they took on Portsmouth in May 2009. Following a dismal campaign, the player was released, and deep down, not even deep down, on their faces, everyone knew this was an up-bust. As transfers go, Arsenal's move for Bischoff was absolutely nuts because it was quite clear to everybody else that he wasn't even a Premier League player. He just didn't have the talent, he didn't have the skill. Number 1, Sol Campbell. So far, the majority of this list has been made up by players who are complete flops, but that's not the case for Sol Campbell, one of Arsenal's best ever players, and in fact he made such an impact there, he even had a second stint at the club. However, there's no denying that Campbell's move was a strange one because he did indeed leave from rivals Tottenham and he joined Arsenal, and nobody does that because, you know, people go crazy, but he did. And it was a huge success. And yeah, of course, he did become public enemy number 1 for some people, but he also won the Premier League, and he was part of that season where Arsenal went unbeaten. There's a large reason for it. Signed on a free, the real genius came from then Vice Chairman David Dean, because he told the club, look, pay him his crazy wages that he's asking for, it's going to work out. And look what happened, it most definitely worked out. He proved to be worth every penny, and he became a mainstay of that defence. And that's something Arsenal could use today. They could use someone like Sol Campbell in the defence. Hey, they could use anybody. I could play in defence and probably do a better job. That's mean, could be true. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know about any other weird Arsenal signings. Like, share and subscribe. Head over to whatculture.com and read yourself some articles, or you can follow What Culture on Twitter or WhatCultureFC. My name is Simon Miller. Thanks for watching, and if you do indeed watch this before the World Cup starts, enjoy it. And if the World Cup is over, I hope you did enjoy it. Power of love.